Oh, you're fine.
Okay.
I'm not in the way. So, hello, thank you for coming. I'm Jamie Sweeney. I'm the owner of Juniper Art Gallery, and I'm really excited. This is the first book club we've done in 2022. We took a break in January. So I wanted to just give you a little bit of info on the gallery before we get started. We host a variety of monthly art-centered events. It's been a little challenging during the pandemic and kind of planning things and canceling things, but we're hoping this year we can get back into doing more art-centered activities. And we plan on teaming up with Krista Detour in the 100th Hill with some activities this year too, so that's pretty exciting. We'll keep you posted. If you sign up for a monthly newsletter, you'll hear more about that. We have an e-newsletter that goes out at the beginning of each month. You can go to juniperartgallery.com to sign up for the monthly e-newsletter as well. And you can also purchase all this beautiful artwork is all on the website. So these are about 30 some regional artists that show here. And we have 2 main gallery switch outs a year. We'll be coming up with that here in April 1st. We'll start a new exhibit, the spring exhibit. So Juniper has a YouTube channel, and you can watch this book club on it, or past book clubs or future book clubs. If you go to that, you can become a subscriber to that also. And we are really excited to have both esteemed guests here, our local guest author, Ian Woollen, and our moderator, Yael Ksander. And I am now going to introduce Yael. She's worked as a radio producer, speechwriter, and drawing instructor. I'm just stealing a straight from
my gosh,
post.
that is a very tongue-in-cheek biography. So
Okay, well, I thought it was awesome. She translated the Seoul Olympics and catered both of her own weddings. That's saying a lot. High points along the way include having met her heroes Tom Röntgen, Ian Steinberg, and Linda Berry. A Washington, D.C. native, Yael studied languages, literature, and art history at the University of Virginia and Columbia University before pursuing her MFA in painting in Bloomington, where she ended up raising 2 magnificent children. Yael refers to Ian Woollen's Sister City novel as a wicked, whimsical satire that connects fictional sister cities in Indiana and Mexico. And she says Ian writes in the tradition of John Irving and Kurt Vonnegut. And I think if you've read the book, you will certainly agree with that assessment. And you can read Yael's entire review of Sister City at limepostmagazine.com, limestonepostmagazine.com. And it's a really wonderful not-for-profit e-magazine and a community resource for Monroe County and surrounding counties. Next month, our book club will have David J. Emerson Young. We're going to kind of go to doing an artist talk, and he's got a wonderful book, Figures in Landscape, of his drawings. So this is going to be very interesting and a little bit divergent from what we have been doing. It won't be a novel, it will be him talking about his drawings. So that'll be next month, March 10th. So before I hand this over to Yael, I would like everyone to take note that Juniper has 2 incredible paintings by Ian's late great father, architect, and visual artist Evans Woollen in our back estate art room. So if you haven't been back there yet to check them out, you should go see them. He's a wonderful architect and painter. So, and you can view and purchase his artwork also online at juniperartgallery.com on our Fine Arts webpage under Estate Art. So I will turn this over to Yael, and if you have questions, or we probably can't hear very well unless we put our masks down when we talk. Okay.
Well, actually, Jamie, I wanted to turn it over to Ian, but first I wanted just to thank you for hosting this event and for promoting all of the arts in our area.
Well, thank you.
Incredible labor of love, I know.
Yes, thank you.
But I think we were going to begin with Ian with a reading, right? Or at least maybe an introduction from.
Yeah, I was thinking you would introduce Ian. Maybe I got that wrong.
Oh, right.
I introduced you. So sorry.
Read Ian's biography in the back of the book.
Yeah.
So, all right, Ian Woollen, Exhibit A, works in Bloomington, Indiana, home to several limestone quarries or quarries, as you prefer, and not far from the mythical cave city, which is one of the loci of this book. His short fiction has appeared in a variety of journals, including the Mid-American Review, Split Lip, Jute, Smokelong Quarterly, and Fiction Southeast. His last novel from Coffeetown Press, Muir Woods or Bust, won a 2017 Indies Prize. And this is your 5th novel, correct?
That's right, that's right.
And so, listen, why don't you get us started with an introduction, a reading, and then we can have a discussion.
Thanks, thank you all for coming out. It's great to see people come on a winter afternoon to engage in such a decidedly old-fashioned event as talking about a book. And I'm also very grateful to hear whatever you want to say because I learn a lot at these events. And there's a kind of a popular misconception out there that because a person wrote a book, that means they know everything about the book. And it's not always true. And by way of example, in Yael's review, the Limestone Post, she very insightfully notes that every single character in Sister City is motivated by a sense of loss around home and family, and that they're motivated by trying to reclaim or find a sense of home and family. And I read that and I thought, wow, she's right. I didn't know that.
What? That wasn't good. Oh.
So what? I'll tell you a little bit what I do know about this book and sort of how it came to be. It's been a long time coming. The gestation for this book has been over 20 years. It started with some events and some incidents that kind of cracked a shell of ignorance around Mexico and Latino culture in the Midwest. And that started with being in Indianapolis airport. This is probably the mid-90s, and noticing that every announcement on the PA system was being repeated in Spanish. And I've been going to the Indianapolis airport since I was a kid in the 60s, and I'd never heard that before. And I thought, well, what's that about? You know, something's going on here. And then a couple of years later, I was working my first job as a therapist on the south side of Indianapolis in a place called Greenwood Counseling Associates, and a case was referred from the diversion or pretrial diversion program to one of the counselors, and they asked me to come on as a co-therapist. And the case was 6 Latino guys who were all living together in one motel room, and all working jobs and sending back, remittances. And they'd gotten into an argument, and there was no violence, nobody got hurt, but voices were raised, and somebody had called the police, and the police said, well, just, go get some counseling. So it was a 3 sessions with these 6 guys, and I guess I'd heard that this kind of thing was happening, existed, but I didn't know it was here. Meanwhile, I've got a little kid. He's growing up. He wants to go to soccer games, and my son and Will here and I would be going to these IU soccer games, and lo and behold, every April there's a IU game against Mexico, the Mexican junior national team. And I don't know if you've been to that game, but it's not, you might think you're just going to a soccer game, but you get there and the place is packed with Hispanic families from all around, waving flags, playing music, cooking, singing every verse of the Mexican national anthem, and and I realized, something's going on here, right? I mean, something's going on here, and that And so I finally said I want to write something about this. I started about 15 years ago, I guess. I started the first version of this, which was nothing like this. It was actually a baseball novel about a Mexican baseball player who ends up playing for the Indianapolis Indians. I got about 30 pages and realized, this is a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. This is going to be really tough. And part of it was realizing, maybe I should learn some Spanish first of all, and also, wrestling with the big debate, big question out there now about, cultural appropriation and do I really, should I even try to write this book? And so I shelved it, and in the interim years, actually wrote 2 different books, and kind of maybe secretly thought this would just go away. But it didn't, because I started to take some trips to Mexico, and the shell kind of cracked open even more, revealing another shell of not only of ignorance, but a shell of fear, right? And realizing, I'd grown up with taking in a lot of messages in the media and everywhere that Mexico is a place to be afraid of, right? It's a failed state, it's a narco state, it's a bunch of macho rapists, right? And going down there and spending time and realizing, if the primary lens is fear, there's a lot that gets missed. And sure, Mexico's got its issues and its problems, but it's an amazingly alive, warm, human, wonderful place and people. So I kind of ramped up the language thing and decided I would spend some time down there at going to language school and living with a family. Spent 5 years each spring going down for about 2.5 weeks to Merida in the Yucatan, and staying with the family, studying at this school, and traveling around the Yucatan. And that's when Sister City idea started to take shape, because there's limestone everywhere. It's just like here. Caves everywhere, just like here. Started to think about the similarity of these 2 environments. You go to the Mayan temple sites, and they start to echo the Indian mound sites that are all around us here. I had visited a lot of those here, and I'd heard and read some about the theory that there was contact with the Mayans, that they came up, and so this idea started to take shape of, what if you have these 2 locations that not only have a kind of relationship in the present, but also have a relationship that goes back 1,000 years. And then kind of came the idea of, all right, and what if the drivetrain for the plot was this, that there's a sister city relationship, that there's a referendum that has to be voted on every 20 years to reaffirm it, and what might have initially looked like it was just going to be a rubber stamp has now turned into a political hot potato. And the rest was just a lot of hard work. But also I got lucky because there were a number of people who read early drafts and gave me a lot of help and advice on it.
So Ian, can I push against that a little bit?
Sure.
So you sound very reverent right now about the motivations for your book, and that it came out of a place of love and admiration, and I don't doubt that. But you're also having a laugh, and if you can't call the entire thing a satire, there are a lot of satirical elements, and yet you've elicited all of these quotes from people who take it very earnestly, like, no matter how many walls humans put up between each other, we are interconnected by history. And so I read all of these, and at first I thought, oh, this is a very earnest book, and this doesn't sound like Ian. And And then I read it and I realized it's just as wicked as your other book. So I guess you must have a little bit of, I don't know, it's an arch take on the sister city concept and some of the high-minded motivations, I think, that people have about these kinds of relationships and the desire to, solder connections and that.
Right. Well, part of that is kind of strategic approach to the question of, okay, I knew there was going to be a lot of political content, and how do you write a novel that's, how do you make that accessible, or how to make that approachable, so that, like you say, so that it's not just this kind of super heavy situation, and so humor's always to get people engaged. Satire is always a good way to go to kind of lighten and open up a story to the reader.
Got it. I don't know if you want to start reading or anything like that, but I don't know if folks have read the book or not, but the book is so funny that it's almost like when you're watching a movie and you have to stifle your laughter because you don't want to laugh over the next joke. Sometimes, not just names of things, but also situations and even sight gags. And I'll just name some of the proper nouns that you've invented. The Church of Planet Jesus, which is this crazy intergalactic Christian thing. The Rushing Winds Biker Church, an Indian stand-up comic called Noble. And I've noticed that someone running for office in Indiana is also called Noble, at least. Yeah, it's for some office, maybe.
His name is actually Pure Bull.
His name is Pure Bull?
And stole it from you. The noble.
I'm sorry. Breakless Eddie, that's a mechanic. And then the name of the moving truck company is called a Pilgrim Relocation Moving Company. And then there's a Mexican girl who's been called .com, which Ian says is a popular name in remote Yucatan villages where cyberspace is still just a magical rumor, like it is at my mother's house, actually. And so it's also, I just to add, it's a place where cliches come to life. Retired Hoosier Transit employees enjoy a literal busman's holiday in a Mexican town where they drive their old buses for fun. That was pretty great, Ian. And then a Boston preppy, Winnie, gives up on trying to make it in the Midwest when her baggage, which is on the aforementioned Pilgrim Relocation truck, finally catches up with her. Her baggage catches up with her hand in hand. So, it is hysterical, and I just love it, and I'm kind of interested in your take on satire in general, and it's like, I don't know, I'm not necessarily Swift, but maybe Tom Wolfe or something. It's do you consider it satire?
I'm a big fan of satire, and sometimes that word has a little, twinge to it.
Yeah,
and,
right.
But sign me up. And again, I think it's actually a very useful and effective way to get a reader interested and involved in the text.
And I'm wondering also if the urgency.
You've all heard the phrase of you can't make this stuff up. A lot of this stuff is actually true. I'm a lot of it I'm not making up. I'm just sharing what I've heard, in situations and places and names that I've encountered.
.com for kids?
.com is entirely true. That was, yeah, that's,
I like burst out laughing when I read that in the book.
yeah, no, one of the teachers at the school in Meredith told me that this was quite common. Yeah,
Um,
in the Mayan villages.
Ian, would you like to read a passage?
Sure.
Instead of just have me paraphrase?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought with Will here that my buddy from the soccer games, I'll read, and there's the soccer game, the IU Mexican soccer game figures here in the book, and I'll just read a passage about that. This comes a bit later on, and the soccer game in the book is kind of the point where a lot of things come together, and it's sort of the act 3 moment of the screenplay where, you know, the things kick into gear and the plot starts to really amp up. But I'll just kind of read you the opening of the section. Game day in Cape, and I'll preface this by saying what the game is in the book is that these two towns, it's part of the sister city relationship, that they have this annual game where the kind of local club team from the Mexican town, which is Ciudad de la Gruta, or Cave City in Spanish, flies up and they play a game with the university team from Cave City, who the university is called Southwest Hoosier State, and the name for their team is the Frackers. Game day in Cave City dawned to the coos of mourning doves and the faint whistle of a freight train, clear and sunny with a resolute December chill, which the local fans hoped would be an advantage for their team. As part of the sister city effort this year, Gloating Butts paid for 2 charter planes to bring the Saba team along with relatives and friends. The Sabas are the name of the Mexican team. The Saba is the name of a tree. The Saba is kind of the sacred tree of the Maya. Along with relatives and friends. Several families signed up and obtained tourist visas, all close with Juan Pablo Chaya, a striker, Pedro Alvarez, and his parents and grandparents, and his little sister. They operate a zapateria on the western edge of Centennial Park that supplies the team with shoes. The middle halfback, Alfonso Sillon, and his mother and 2 uncles and older brother. They reside in a house entirely covered with bougainvillea that makes the place look twice its size in the barrio behind the water tower. And another striker, Mauricio Fernandez, and his parents and grandmother and 2 brothers and younger sister, who run a small engine repair shop near the second-class bus station. All the visitors to Cave City were housed at the Indian Mound Motel and fed at the University Commons. The pep rally on campus the previous night streaked the sycamores and beech trees with tissue paper. Shreds fluttered in the morning breeze. The remains of a bonfire on the quad smoldered wisps of blue smoke. Tailgaters and food trucks and merchandise hawkers arrived early at the Fracker Field parking lots. In recent years, the West Lot had become an unofficial open-air mercado for artists and leather workers and jewelry vendors. Brakeless Eddie and his wife manned a booth to sell her beadwork. The East Lot was the outdoor food court featuring several Latin American cuisines. Good smells all day long. Some of the tamale trucks came all the way from Louisville. Like one of the circling turkey buzzers aroused by the cooking smells and the prospect of easy prey, Sheriff Hooker hovered astride his horse, trotting around the perimeter of the stadium grounds, grinning and waving to his supporters. Sheriff Hooker felt buoyed and confident that the Church of the Planet Jesus scandal would prove to be his big break. He had waxed his mustache for this day. Chica scurried behind him, handing out Hooker for Mayor bumper stickers. Using a walkie-talkie, the sheriff barked orders to his deputies. He directed the setup of traffic pylons and made his authoritative presence known to the stream of vehicles arriving from all directions. Vehicles packed with eager fans, waving Mexican flags from the back of pickup trucks, many of them undocumented, bravely surfacing for a day of solidarity. The drivers and passengers peered warily at Sheriff Hooker and accepted the bumper stickers from Chico. everyone trusting in the unwritten pledge originally negotiated with the Chamber of Commerce that no papers would be checked today. A day of tolerance, a day for the embrace of mutual interests. Because this friendly match brings a tremendous boon to the local economy. Why not let the illegals spend their hard-earned money for a few hours? Games at Fracker Field typically drew a couple hundred fans at most. Today was standing room only.
And that gives us a taste of the really wild and huge cast of characters
Right.
that you've assembled. And I had to actually keep track in my
Yeah, Jane was saying she had to make a list.
Yeah.
I did like each city and the characters.
Yeah. Yeah, and also each character has ties to the other city in some way, or the other country, and so, and it's, you know, it's very cinematic, where we are taken from one subplot to another, to another, to another, and then somehow or another they all connect. So as a writer, I guess I'm curious about how you manage to keep all that stuff straight, and if you have big family trees written on the walls and that sort of thing.
That's a good question, and you know, I've heard that from people about for me it was all kind of floated there. I mean, I do, you know, some writers will make, you know, story outlines, and we'll occasionally, I'll keep a lot of notes and note cards, and I will occasionally kind of just lay a lot of things out on the floor and sort of stare at it and move some things around and see what's what. But mostly the structure, and yeah, that comes from just many drafts. I write many drafts, and also from I think a kind of strategic decision around. I tried to make, although I want there to be a sort of through line to the story, a sense of flow and continuity, I tried to make every chapter have its own little narrative arc, and that every chapter has a sort of, at least a situation of some kind, or a setting of some kind, or a conversation where there's, you know, kind of beginning, middle, end, and not that everything gets resolved every time in each chapter, but so that there's a sort of build, you know, very much a building blocks feel to it.
I see. Yeah, please.
Do you plan to have the book translated into Spanish?
That'd be wonderful.
See with all this hermanos, you know.
It would be wonderful.
It'd be interesting to see the reaction from people in Mexico.
Yeah. One of the biggest breaks I got in terms of sort of help with the book was the director at the school in Merida. That's Fernando de la Cruz. He's got a blurb in there, but he's also a poet and a writer, and a wonderful guy. And we became friends, and he agreed to read the draft and comment, and he gave me all kinds of just amazing pieces. Like there's a scene in the mayor's office with El Plastico and the guy who he's trying to get to talk to, who's going to pour him a drink. He pours him a drink, and in the early draft, I think I had it be a I don't remember what kind of alcohol I had specified, but maybe and Fernando got back to me and said, you know, El Plastico, that's not what he'd have in his hat. Here's what he'd have, and he named a specific kind of rum or something that you know I put in there, and likewise, there's a scene at the church when Dolores is coming out, and she has a moment of thinking about dancing and trying to remember the last time she danced, and Fernando said, you know, Dolores, her dance would be I think it's the cumbia. That would be what she would be thinking about. And so I was able to kind of, put that detail in there that I just never would have been able to have otherwise.
Yeah, I wondered about that, just especially in this era of heightened sensitivity, which is always good. If it wasn't crippling at times to be writing about a culture that was not your own.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a struggle, and like I said, a big question around. Okay, do I, should I even try this? Do I have the right to try this? The way I tried to sort of rationalize it was that where I'm really trying to aim in this book is kind of at the space between the space where cultures meet, and that's yeah, hopefully that works. In some places that's a meeting where there's a butting of heads, and others it's discovering connections I didn't know existed. And another actually another one of the people who gave me the blurb, yeah, there's Eva Lisa. Oh, it was Fred Arroyo. He wrote me a letter actually, and basically thanking me for writing the book. He teaches Latin American fiction, and he said, we need people, we need gringos writing books like this. And we need to hear it from your side, and that was very confirming that it was worthwhile.
We need it because.
My impression was what he meant was that it's part of the sort of fuller gestalt of how do we talk about these stories, how do we talk about cultures, how do we talk about where and how cultures meet.
You referred earlier to the mayor. Is he the mayor called El Plastico?
El Plastico.
Yeah. So you really have a lot of fun with politicians in this book. To say you take a jaundiced view of politicians, I think would not be overstatement. You've got El Plastico, who's named that because of his do-gooder habit of picking up plastic by the side of the road, which reminded me of David Sedaris, actually. But I think he does it as a campaign thing. And then you've got another guy, is it Rosewater? Is that the one who is campaigning for a stop along? He wants to put his town on the map by putting a rest stop there.
Right. He wants Cave City to be the place to pee
On
I-69. As you've all heard, there's no place to pee on I-69.
I mean, and then you've got the very earnest guy in Mexico who's really just as concerned with social justice as he is with getting likes on Instagram, right? But so I mean, it's like very, very irreverent in that way. But I guess we were talking about satire and how it has a lot of it has negative associations as well. Or if something's just purely satire, or if you're just taking a piss all the time, it's maybe not going to be very sustainable of a read. And so what I found really a great balance to that in this book is the earnestness and the heart that really does motivate a lot of these characters, that they are lovely, beautiful, like some flawed heroes for sure, Chad O'Shaughnessy being my favorite. So I loved that balance. If you guys,
I would definitely back you up on that. It seemed like it was just such a rich character, it's just so rich in character, and every one of them seemed to have like some humanity to them. Even in the end, you felt bad for some something bad that happened to one of them, I won't give it away, but, even at that, I just felt like every single one of them had some sort of just endearing quality,
Yeah. The other day, I was watching the Vonnegut documentary, and I guess now's the time in our conversation when we have to bring up the inevitable Vonnegut connection. Some folks here may not know of your connection. Maybe you can share, Ian.
Sure. I grew up in Indianapolis, and in 1961, when I was 4 years old, we moved into the house that Kurt Vonnegut grew up in. And,
So it's the one with the handprint?
it's got his dad was an architect, and when they built the house, they did a thing where the whole family made handprints in cement, and there's a lintel with all of that.
And if what I didn't realize until I saw the documentary the other day was that they had to leave that house when Kurt was 10 or something.
Yeah, he didn't live there. He lived there till I think till 8 or 9. And it was his dad was an architect, and during the Depression, his business was hit hard, and they had to sell and leave. So that was the house where he grew up as a young, as an infant and a young child.
So what was that like, growing up in that house? And did all of the people in your family become writers like you? Or, I mean, how did they not, right?
No, but it was, I very quickly became aware that there was this kind of, presence, right? And Kurt came back and visited actually a few times.
Wow.
And it was an interesting house. There were secret rooms in the house. There's 2 secret rooms in the house. And there's there's a book of Kurt's, a later novel, where he describes the characters are living in a place where they each have a secret room that they can go to. And, if you're just reading the novel and don't know, you think, oh, that's just Kurt being Kurt, right? Thinking up this wacky thing. But I read that and I was like, no, he's talking about the house.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Was it a stop on the underground railroad?
What's that?
Was it a stop?
No, the house was built in the 1920s.
There are very few people who would have been able to know that.
Yeah.
Well, so was it one of those things when you were a kid where it was just like, oh yeah, ancient history? Or was it, I'm going to read every book? I mean, for our generation, it seems like when I was in high school, all of my guy friends were reading Vonnegut. Was that going on for you, except to the max? Or
To the max, yeah. And it was a powerful thing, and in some ways, it has created some pressure, but for the most part, really good. It was a very kind of nurturing foundation, books and reading and writing was just a big part of my parents' life and the community's life. And my aunt dated Dan Wakefield in high school, and so he was kind of part of the family system. I don't know if you guys know him, but my great uncle married Booth Tarkington's sister, so that was kind of always in the mix. And again, just a sort of, I've been blessed with that sense of sort of support around, books and reading and stories and writing, and
It's nice that you interpret it as support and not an ominous shadow,
right?
Or overwhelming.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Another thing that I noticed when watching the film was that he actually said, reflecting upon, the bombing of Dresden and other things he was witness to, I'd rather laugh than cry at the tragic human condition. And that was actually something that I said about your approach. And you probably, in your day job as a psychotherapist, absorb a lot of sadness and pain and help people process that. So I'm just, I guess you can go one way or the other. You can just fold, or you can laugh and kind of reflect on life's absurdity.
Absolutely, and also, that's a quality in Mexico and Latin American culture that, there's a lot of suffering and pain, but that gets transmuted into, humor, warmth, find a way to smile. And I hope that some of that comes through in the book and the characters. Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
It seems like a timely thought for the times we're in right now, pandemic as well. I think we're all struggling, and it's good to look for the things that make you smile.
So I kept trying to identify where things were, like trying to get in your head, like, where is Cave? What is he talking about? Where is Cave City? But, and then I had to let it go and believe it was just a totally different thing that's going on. But the other thing, when I first saw the book, I thought it was a book about the sister city in Nicaragua
Right.
that Bloomington has a relationship with.
Ortega,
Yeah. So I had to kind of put that aside.
I have to tell you, from my perspective, I had a particularly funny dilemma that was actually absurdist, which was that I had just written a review of your book, and it was just published, I think November 1st or something like that, right around Halloween. At the time, and no longer, I was working for the city of Bloomington as the press person. And at the very same time, we were publicizing the fact that Bloomington was undertaking a new relationship with a sister city. Actually, they were calling it sibling city, but it was with Palo Alto. And so with a straight face and trying very hard, hoping that the mayor wasn't going to be reading the Limestone Post, I had to, deal with these same things at the same time. Because I was, I feel like the sister city concept is a little corny. And I feel like that comes through a little bit in your take on it. I mean, as much as we talk, I'm sure that to a certain extent, your interest in the topic was revived when, hi there, how are you? Hi.
See ya.
You too. I was just thinking, you said that you were writing the book over many years, or started to think about it quite early. Was it not motivated by all of this rhetoric about build a wall at the beginning of the Trump thing? And so you've really pulled off a great balancing act, because it's motivated by these really, it seems to me, an earnest desire, as you mentioned, to build bridges. But at the same time, you're having a laugh at all of these kind of callow politicians and their desire to be reelected, and their ridiculous campaign slogans and platforms, like building a rest stop on the interstate and things like that. So I mean, I think you balanced that really nicely. I don't know if I have a question there,
Right.
but how did you balance that?
Well, like you said, I'm certainly aware that about Bloomington's sister city, and curious about that. Somewhere along the line, a friend gave me a book about sister city political structures in Europe. I guess there are a lot of sister cities in Europe, and that also kind of got me thinking about just, what might this look like in a fictional setting, or how could I use that as a platform, to explore some of these other pieces. And then there's one of the kind of tweaks I try to give it is in the conversation that happens, but in the planning committee meeting where somebody raises the question, there's lots of different kinds of sister relationships. What do we got here? Is this a rich sister, poor sister?
Yeah, right.
And what comes out is orphan sisters. These two small towns are kind of like orphan sisters in that they've been abandoned by the larger communities, the trains leaving, and that they're kind of sticking together on that basis, rather than on some sort of cultural imperialism basis. Welcome.
Thank you, I apologize, it is all my fault.
Yeah.
Forever, and I know they're gonna bury me late. I just hope they do it before I stink.
Well, welcome. We're happy you made it.
Anyway, we've already had a chance to talk.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a character in the book, by the way, named Night Snow, and she happens to be sitting right there.
Yeah,
Oh God, I haven't read the book yet.
I caught
I
that
was
pretty
wondering
early
about
on.
that.
Yeah.
Anyway, I couldn't hear anything that you said.
Well, I was wondering, this is Dark
Dark
Rain.
Rain,
This is Dark Rain, and there is a character in Ian's book called Night Snow, and I did think about that connection. That's an homage, I take it.
It's an
She's a very cool character.
She's the coolest.
She's the coolest. No, I'm not kidding. I want to
Are you
be
saying that because you don't want to have a messy thing to clean up here?
Yeah, if it says someplace that he learned something from a Shawnee woman, it's probably this one.
Yeah, she's very cool. She's very cool, so I urge you to read it. That's nice. What an honor to have her sitting here. I was thinking about your biography, you, Ian, and we've shared a few tidbits from it. The fact that you grew up in Vonnegut's house and that you're a psychotherapist. Earlier, I alluded to the cinematic quality of the book, and I think that if it were going to be made into a film, it would be somewhere between Wes Anderson and Werner Herzog. I really think that between the two of them, with Klaus Kinski in some sinister role.
Yeah, that'd be okay.
But you, in fact, do have some roots in the movie business, or I should say, you had a foray.
I had a foray in the movie business and bounced around for a while in the early '80s, and I was three years plus. Anyway, I read scripts for Dustin Hoffman, and this was a job that was turned out to be real integral to actually becoming a writer, because I had to read 4, 5, 6, 7 things a week and write up reports and really sort of analyze. I was kind of the low guy on the totem pole at the Punch Productions, and so I would have to read all the over the transom stuff that came in. But yeah, it just really taught me to think about how stories are put together, and ultimately it kind of got me. I became less interested in the film part of it, and more interested in the writing and in the ideas and the story part of it. But that was but yeah, there is still also that kind of cinematic mindset. There's a whole sort of parts of the book that are kind of set up with just the phrase cut to, right? And I use that as a way to sort of have these moments of just sort of visual experience of the place and the characters, as if we were watching a movie or a telenovela.
I wish you would somehow pitch it, or
Yeah.
I don't know how one does that, but
it was also during that time, there was I was also working in documentaries, and there was one experience, this comes back to the things that are actually true in the book. I was working on a documentary crew that was making a film about Picasso, and we were driving around Spain to all the places that Picasso had lived, and we're in the far rural area, and we're in a production van, and the producer on was says, "Oh yeah, the last time we were through here, a little kid ran out on the road and was hit by the van, and a crowd came out, and it got kind of tense, but we paid him $500 and drove away." And that's, I mean,
We see that scene.
and anyway,
Yes.
that happens in this book with .com, and so that's yeah, didn't make that one up. That
Have you mentioned that the fact that in preparation for this book, you did some deep immersion in living in Mexico?
we talked some about that, yeah.
That's one reason why I think it rings so true, you know. It's just to find out everybody's doing.
Right.
Yeah, and that it is grounded in affection. That seems key, right? Do y'all have things you'd like to bring up? I've hogged Ian.
How much of it is true? That's what I want.
Right up to around 78%.
More or less.
And did you change the font for that part?
If you were a character in the book, who would you be?
There's probably a lot of Chad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Part of the reason I say that is Chad and Winnie are sort of set up to be like me in terms of kind of coming to the whole territory of the material from outside and kind of not really realizing what they were getting into, which is sort of my experience, like I said, with getting into this book and realizing, you know, what it would really take to do it.
Yeah, you have a lot of fun also with academics, I think.
That's
I mean,
true.
almost as much fun as you have with politicians. Like Winnie is just this preppy gal who has it's like her first job after grad school or something, right?
Right.
And she's coming out to Indiana as a brief job in the folklore department, and she gets her toes wet a little bit, and then her fiance, I guess it's her fiance, comes along for the ride because he's like, woo, what am I gonna do next? He's just gotten his counselor degree, or not, it's not really a degree, I guess. He's
Certification as an addictions counselor.
Yeah, because he's had a lot of experience with addictions. So he comes out there just to accompany her. She's the one who's supposed to be getting involved in the folklore and the anthropology, but he's the one who really gets into it. And so she and her academic milieu are sort of, I don't know, I think they're a little bit like dilettantes compared to what's really going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, acting like a bunch of tourists, kind of. Yeah. So, did you have some experience with academics, I guess, Ian, right?
I need to be careful what I say.
He does have cameras pointed at him.
We're all here. Well, we all do. in this neck of the woods, right?
I think I might take a quick
How are
break.
we on time?
We're doing good. We have just a couple more minutes, but I would just like to say this is like pure coincidence that Mitch has shown up and his friend here to help us. I'm sorry, Henry. Yeah,
You're totally fine.
We met the other day.
Yeah.
My brain's yeah.
Oh yeah.
So they're going to be doing a documentary on Spencer,
And he was just stopping in and not really expecting this, but he thought, wow, what a neat opportunity to, get a little footage of things that go on in Spencer. So
But
that's.
I want to add more. It's so interesting because the first time I lived abroad was in Mexico.
Oh.
So I have had that immersion experience, and I have to read the book. I read your review when it first came out, but I haven't read it yet. And it's funny too because I often think of Indiana, where I've lived for 5 years now. I think of it as my Mexico or my Latin America, like a place that I'm not from, but I'm kind of immersed in now. And so there's a lot of interesting coincidences here. I'm glad to meet you.
Well, fantastic. Yeah, thank you. Enjoy.
What's next, Ian?
What's next? Well, I mentioned the wonderful people who've read early drafts and helped me out, and one of those guys is sitting right there. And I finished the draft of a new novel I'm actually going back to some earlier territory with the Muir Woods book around climate fiction, eco-fiction, but no surprise, this book has a Mexican character in it, and who comes from a small island off the coast of Yucatan. There's a couple scenes that take place there.
You need to incorporate the birds aren't real conspiracy. That might work in there. Is there another short funny passage you might want to take us out with or something?
That's a nice idea.
Because it's just such rich, hilarious prose. I just love it so much. I want to make sure everyone gets a feel for it.
Sure. I can read. This is just a short description of the two towns. This is actually sort of through the viewpoint of a character named El Drum, who's talking. He's grown up in Cave City, but he's ended up in Ciudad de la Gruta. A fitting coincidence that the town of my youth and the town of my midlife crisis are made of the same stuff. Both are places where time stopped, as the saying goes. Correction. It's not a fair description of these two birds. More like time swerved to avoid an errant cow or pig or an escaped flock of backyard chickens and ran into a ditch and splintered into 1,000 different pieces, reflecting aspects of last year, last century, last millennium. For example, the Saturday farmers market on the courthouse square, and the Sunday flea market on the Plaza Grande. Blind people selling brooms on downtown street corners, avenues in both towns closed off for pedestrians and bicycles on the weekends. Happy Dan's hot dogs in Cave City and Lord's taco stand in Ciudad de la Gruta, both grilling meat outside the wrought iron gates to the cemeteries. And there is always some poor guy on a curb, hunched in that archetypal pose, the squat. The squatters watch the diminishing trickle of commercial life in the town centers. A couple pool halls and shoe repair shops and sporting goods stores holding on, and also a storefront visitor center where an elderly volunteer hands out Sister City bumper stickers and keychains. And don't forget the mutual fixation on corn. The corn queen, the maize princess. Everyone loves a teenage beauty pageant. Giant silos smack in the middle of both centros beside the railroad tracks. Closed drive-in movie theaters and failing strip malls on the scrubby edges of the industrial zones. And the improvised Friday night parade on Main Street and Avenue Hidalgo, where the farm boys and the campesinos cruise by in mud-splattered pickups, waving and whistling to the lovers draped together on the sidewalk benches. Women in both towns known by their recipes, Senora Tres Leches cake and Mrs. Persimmon pudding. My foster mother long reigned as Mrs. Cornmeal Mush. Let it harden, cut it, fry it.
And many thanks to everybody for coming out. Thank you to Yael. Thank you so much, Ian. This has been really a pleasure to hear you talk about the book. I absolutely loved it. We have copies for sale. If you would like to buy it and have Ian sign, or if you have one that you brought with you that you'd like him to sign, we'd be happy to. And next month's book club is on March 10th, and we'll have David J. Emerson Young talking about his Figures and Landscapes book and his artwork. So please join us. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane.
If you haven't seen David Young's paintings, Yael, I think I wrote to you about them when they were at the Far Gallery. He did a series on global climate change. Very, very powerful.
Okay.
He's an interesting artist.
Well, it sure is nice to see you. Hi. Hi, I'm so sorry that, I know, I'm also confused, so I don't
I'm helping.
Yeah.
Start the
Yeah.